The Xiaomi 17 is one of those smartphones where you can immediately tell that Xiaomi is trying to pack as many premium features as possible into a slightly more affordable package. It is not quite as expensive as the Xiaomi 17 Pro, but it still comes with a strong AMOLED display, a large 6500 mAh battery, a Leica camera system with 5x telephoto zoom, IP68 certification, fast storage, HyperOS 3, and the MediaTek Dimensity 8500 Ultra. At the same time, though, this is not a true flagship. The frame is not quite as premium as on the Pro model, wireless charging is missing, 67-watt charging is good but not extremely fast by Xiaomi standards, and the processor is of course not on the same level as the top tier flagship chips. But that is exactly what makes the Xiaomi 17 interesting. The question is not whether it is better than an ultra flagship, but whether it might offer the better everyday mix of price, camera, battery, display, and performance. And that is exactly what we're going to take a look at now. When it comes to design, Xiaomi takes a slightly different approach with the 17 compared to the Pro model. The phone measures 157mm in height, 75mm in width, and about 8mm thin. It weighs 200 grams, so of course this is not a small smartphone, but for a device with a 6.59-inch display and a 6500 mAh battery, it still feels surprisingly manageable, especially compared to the Pro model. It feels a little bit more compact and lighter, and that can actually make a noticeable difference in everyday use. Many large smartphones have become very heavy these days, and this is where the Xiaomi 17 feels a little bit more nicely balanced. It is available in black, opal white, blue, and violet. The brighter colors look a little bit more eye-catching without feeling too playful. Build quality is good overall. On the front, the display is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 7i, but the frame is not quite on flagship level and feels a little bit more like plastic than aluminum. That is one of the areas where you notice the difference compared to the Pro model. Still, the phone does not feel cheap. The back looks high quality, the transitions are clean, the buttons are easy to reach on the right side, and the camera module is large, but not completely over the top. You also get IP68 certification against dust and water. However, that does not mean you should intentionally take the phone into the sea, into a pool, or into the shower. Xiaomi itself points out that these tests are done under laboratory conditions and that liquid damage is not automatically covered by the warranty. In everyday life, IP68 is still a clear advantage if the phone gets exposed to rain, splashes, or short accidental contact with water. For storage, there are two versions, 2 gigs of RAM with 256 gigs of storage and 512 gigs of storage. It is nice to see that Xiaomi uses a fast UFS 4.1 storage right here. There's no microSD expansion though, so I would think carefully beforehand whether 256 gigs are enough or whether it makes more sense to go straight for the 512 GB version. Especially if you film a lot, take many photos, or install large games. The bigger storage options is the more relaxed choice in the long run. The display is one of the strongest parts of the Xiaomi 17T. It uses a 6.59-inch AMOLED panel with a resolution of 2756 by 1268 pixels. Xiaomi calls it 1.5K, and with 460 pixels per inch, the panel is really sharp. Text look clean, images look detailed, and scrolling feels pleasantly modern. The refresh rate goes up to 120 Hz. Sure, the Pro model offers a little bit more on paper, but honestly, most people will not notice a real disadvantage in everyday use. 120 Hz feels smooth whether you are scrolling through menus, browsing the web, or using social media. The rest of the display specs are strong as well. The panel supports 12-bit color depth, you got 100% DCI-P3, HDR10+, Dolby Vision, Pro HDR, and several eye-comforting technologies. Now, Xiaomi states a maximum brightness of up to 3500 nits, although that is under specific conditions and not permanently across the entire screen. Still, the display is very bright in everyday use and remains easy to read outdoors. For a smartphone in this class, that is really strong. Under the display, there is an optical fingerprint scanner. It works quickly and reliably, although I personally would have preferred it to sit a little bit higher. For sound, the Xiaomi 17T comes with 2 stereo speakers, Dolby Atmos, high-res audio, and high-res wireless. The sound is good for a smartphone, loud enough, clean, and with a fairly wide soundstage. Of course, it does not replace good headphones or a Bluetooth speaker, but for YouTube, podcasts, series, or gaming, it's absolutely fine. And as usual with Xiaomi, there's also an AR blaster, which lets you control devices like TVs or other appliances. That is a typical Xiaomi feature and sometimes more useful in everyday life than you might expect. For software, Xiaomi uses HyperOS 3 based on Android 16. The interface is very typical Xiaomi. Lots of features, lots of customization options, plenty of small extras, and a look that now feels much more modern than before. You get different personalization options, small connectivity features with other devices, and a whole range of AI functions. These include AI writing, AI speech recognition, AI interpreters, AI search, dynamic AI wallpapers, and an AI creativity assistant. Circular search with Google and Google Gemini are also included. As always, however, availability of individual AI features can vary depending on region, language, software version, and app support. What I generally like about HyperOS is the amount of functionality. You can adjust a lot. The interface feels fast, animations are smooth, and Xiaomi has improved the connection between different devices. If you already use Xiaomi products, you get a fairly complete ecosystem right here. At the same time, HyperOS is not as clean as Pixel Android. There are many menus, many extra features, and depending on the region, also some pre-installed apps. If you want a very minimal Android experience, you may have to clean things up a little bit at first. In terms of update support, the Xiaomi 17T is well positioned. The phone launches directly with Android 16 and HyperOS 3, so it's up to date on the software version. You also get NFC, dual SIM, you got eSIM support, dual band GPS, and several sensors such as proximity sensor, ambient light sensor, and a lot more. Overall, the Xiaomi 17T offers a very comprehensive feature set. It is not the cleanest version of Android, but it feels fast, versatile, and packed with features. Inside the Xiaomi 17T is the MediaTek Dimensity 8500 Ultra. It is not a full flagship chip like the one on the Pro model, but it clearly sits in the upper mid-range segment. For everyday use, that means apps open quickly, multitasking is smooth, and social media, camera use, navigation, streaming, and normal daily tasks are no problem at all. Combined with an UFS 4.1 storage, Xiaomi 17T feels very responsive. Gaming performance is also more than good enough. Games like Call of Duty, Mobile, PUBG, Asphalt, or Genshin Impact run well, depending on the title, of course, with adjusted graphic settings. If you expect maximum FPS at the highest graphic settings in every game, a true gaming phone or a flagship will still be the better choice. But for most users, the performance is more than sufficient. The cooling system is also interesting. Xiaomi uses a 3D ice loop system, which is designed to distribute heat more effectively. This is important during long gaming sessions or benchmarks because a smartphone should not only be fast for a short moment, but also maintain its performance over time. Based on early impressions, thermal controls seem pretty good. The device remains comparatively stable under longer load and does not immediately drop performance heavily. Still, the classification is important. The Xiaomi 17T is not a pure performance monster, but rather a very strong all-around smartphone. It offers enough power for everyday use, camera features, AI functions, and gaming, but the focus is not only on benchmark numbers. If you want maximum performance, you should look at the Pro model, but if you want a fast, efficient, and everyday friendly smartphone, this is a very good package. Now, battery life is one of the biggest advantages of the Xiaomi 17T. Xiaomi uses a 6500 mAh silicon carbon battery, which is really strong for a phone of this size. In everyday use, the Xiaomi 17T should easily get through a long day, and with moderate use, 1.5 or 2 days are realistic. Of course, that depends heavily on how you use the phone. If you game a lot, film for long periods, or use navigation or keep the display brightness high, the battery will drain faster. Charging is done with 67 watts hypercharge. That is fast, but not quite on the level of some other Xiaomi models. According to test results, around 55% in about half an hour is possible, while full charge takes around an hour. Unfortunately, wireless charging is missing. However, you do get wired reverse charging at up to 22.5 watts, so you can charge headphones, a smartwatch, or even another smartphone in an emergency. Overall, battery life is clearly a strength, while the charging speed is good but not overwhelming. The camera system is one of the most interesting parts of the Xiaomi 17T because Xiaomi uses a strong Leica setup right here. The main camera has a 50 megapixel sensor, optical image stabilization, and uses Xiaomi's Light Fusion 800 sensor. Alongside that, there is a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and the real highlight is the 50 megapixel periscope telephoto camera with 5 times optical zoom and optical image stabilization as well. And this telephoto camera is exactly what makes the Xiaomi 17T stand out from many other phones in this class. In daylight, the main camera delivers very good photos with strong colors. high contrast, and plenty of detail. Thanks to the Leica tuning, the images have a little bit more character, and you can choose between Leica Authentic look and Leica Vibrant look. Authentic looks a little bit more natural, while Vibrant pushes the colors more. The 2x zoom from the main camera is decent, but the real strength is clearly the 5x telephoto zoom. Here, the Xiaomi 17T produces sharp, contrasty, and very usable photos. Even 10x zoom is still quite usable, while the very high digital zoom is more of a gimmick. The ultra-wide camera is solid, but not on the same level as the main and telephoto cameras. For landscapes, buildings, or group photos, it is fine, but when it comes to detail and close-up shots, you can see the limits. The 32 megapixel selfie cam is absolutely okay for social media, video calls, and normal selfies, even though autofocus is missing. In low light, especially, the main camera does a good job. Photos are bright enough, colors remain accurate, and detail is preserved well. It is also nice to see that the telephoto camera can still deliver usable results at night, which is not something you can take for granted in this class. For video, the main camera records up to 4K in 60 FPS, and the telephoto camera also delivers strong 4K clips. Overall, the camera is one of the biggest reasons to consider the Xiaomi 17T. Especially the 5x telephoto zoom makes the phone much more versatile than many other upper mid-range smartphones. So my conclusion is quite positive. A strong display, very good battery life, modern software, solid performance, and a camera system that mainly stands out because of its telephoto zoom. The biggest drawbacks remain the missing wireless charging, the not extremely fast charging speed, the less premium frame, and the fact that the processor is not quite true flagship level. But once the price drops a little bit, the Xiaomi 17T could become one of the most interesting upper mid-range smartphones.